A young woman, Su Fei, stood trembling in a long dress, her fate sealed by a cruel bargain. To save her father from crushing gambling debts, she was forced to sell her body for one night. The price was £500, money that would buy not only her dignity, but unknowingly her future child. But what began as a transaction soon twisted into something far more complicated. That night, Su Fei met Charlie, a wealthy nobleman bound by tradition and suffocated by responsibility. His reputation demanded silence, his father demanded heirs, and his wife, tragically left in a vegetative state, had left him trapped between duty and despair. To the world, Charlie was cold and calculating. Yet beneath the mask of restraint was a man desperate to keep his family name alive. For Su Fei, their nights together were filled with shame, numbness, and the quiet ache of a soul being stripped away. She had entered the agreement like a commodity, but in the warmth of Charlie's unexpected tenderness, she found herself caught in a dangerous web of emotion. When their child was born, Su Fei's heart longed to hold her baby, but the infant was taken from her before she could even look into her daughter's eyes. For Charlie, £500 had not only purchased Su Fei's body, but also claimed their child. Broken but unyielding, Su Fei swore to fight for her daughter, even if it cost her life. The tragedy was crueler still. She didn't even know the man's true name. What began as a contract of survival was now destined to erupt into a storm of love, betrayal, and relentless pursuit. This is not just a tale of forbidden love. It is a story of sacrifice, of identity, and of a woman's vow to reclaim the piece of her soul that was stolen from her. Su Fei entered the bargain as nothing more than a commodity, but a single confession shattered the walls around her heart. In that moment, she realized the man before her was not the ruthless aristocrat she had imagined, but Charlie. A lonely soul chained by duty, morality, and a marriage bound to a wife who lay unconscious, frozen between life and death. Charlie, too, was shaken. In Su Fei's sharp, unyielding eyes, he saw a woman far stronger and purer than he deserved. The tension between them was no longer just about the cold weight of a contract. It became an unspoken connection, a dangerous sympathy that pulled them closer. Their nights together changed. The awkward silence gave way to warmth, tears, and a bittersweet tenderness. On the third day, by the sea, Su Fei's quiet smile broke through Charlie's defenses like sunlight piercing a storm. For a fleeting moment, they were no longer bound by status, money, or obligation. Only two lonely souls clinging to one another. But fate was merciless. When the final morning came, the ship's horn sounded. Su Fei had to leave, and Charlie's farewell was as cold as his torn heart. She carried away with her nothing but a fragile love that would drown silently in time. Months later, Su Fei gave birth to a baby girl. But before she could even cradle her child, the infant was taken from her arms. That cruel moment split her soul in two. Half remained with her, and the other half was forever tied to the daughter she could not hold. Years passed. Each birthday, Su Fei poured her grief and longing into delicate watercolor paintings. Silent blessings sent to a child who never knew her mother's face, her voice, or her name. 7 long years of yearning only deepened the love that time could not erase. Finally, in the bitter winter of the 7th year, Su Fei could no longer endure the torment. Determined to reclaim what was hers, she found a way into the noble manor, disguising herself as a family teacher. And there, at last, she saw a little girl, the same age as her lost daughter. The story of love, sacrifice, and destiny had come full circle. When Su Fei first laid eyes on the little girl named Lu Yixia, her world shattered. The child's stubborn yet delicate features mirrored Charlie's so closely that Su Fei's heart nearly stopped. She had finally found her daughter. But reality struck hard. Lu Yixia, who had grown up without a mother's love, was unruly and sharp-tongued, shaped by years of neglect. The first words she hurled at Su Fei were cold and cruel. "Bugger away, lady." Watching her daughter walk off without a glance back was like watching her soul being torn apart once again. Fortunately, Camelia, the loyal caretaker of the manor, was impressed by Su Fei's gentle nature and quickly hired her as Lu Yixia's tutor. But fate had yet another cruel twist. The next day, a carriage rolled into the estate, and inside sat the man Su Fei had longed for and feared for 7 years, Charlie. When their eyes met, the air froze. Charlie's face flickered with shock, panic, anger, and something far more dangerous, unspoken longing. He immediately pulled Su Fei into his study, his voice a roar of fury. Her presence, he feared, threatened to unravel everything he had worked so hard to preserve and would shame the noble family name. Su Fei fell to her knees, begging. She no longer cared about money or contracts, only about staying near her daughter. She promised to keep their secret, even to return the 500 pounds he once paid, if only she could remain. But Charlie, like a cornered lion, refused. He ordered Camelia to dismiss her at once. To his frustration, the law stood against him. Teachers had the right to stay for a full month, no matter what. Bound by this absurd rule, Charlie reluctantly allowed Su Fei to remain, but to protect his secret, he led her to a hidden room. There, on a bed, lay his wife, paralyzed for 10 years, trapped in silence. In front of her lifeless body, Charlie forced Su Fei to swear she would never reveal the truth of Lu Yixa's birth. With her dignity as the price, Su Fei made the oath. Thus began her month as Lu Yixa's tutor, a task far harder than she imagined. The girl was defiant, spoiled, and cruel. "I don't have to listen to you," she sneered. "You're just a servant." The words cut deeper than any blade, yet Su Fei did not bend. Determined to teach her daughter respect, she even locked her in the classroom despite the child's screams, despite Charlie's objections. Day after day, with patience and resolve, Su Fei chipped away at Lu Yixa's hostility. Slowly, the cracks of change began to appear. Meanwhile, Tyler, a friend of Charlie's, was captivated by Su Fei's strength and beauty. He confessed his feelings, offering her a stable, wealthy future. But Su Fei's heart belonged only to Charlie, no matter how unreachable he seemed. She turned Tyler away, and though Charlie pretended indifference, a flicker of joy stirred quietly within him. Then came the breaking point. During a heated quarrel, Lu Yixa's cruel words finally shattered Su Fei's composure. Overcome by anguish, Su Fei seized 2 cups of paint. One she poured over her daughter, the other over herself. Holding the terrified girl tightly, her voice trembled as she whispered, "I am not a servant. I am a prisoner. And one day you will be too." Her confession was both a warning and a truth etched in pain, the cycle of fate that bound them all. Su Fei's desperate words struck like thunder in Lu Yixa's heart. "When you come of age, the gates will close around you because you are a woman. If you marry, all that you own will belong to your husband. If you refuse to marry, the world will shut every door in your face. The only path left is loneliness and humiliation. They will lock you away, Lu Yixa, just as they locked me." For the first time, the spoiled young girl felt a love so fierce and undeniable that it shattered her pride. From that day forward, Lu Yixa changed. She set aside her arrogance and truly began to learn under Su Fei's guidance. Their bond deepened, not only as student and teacher, but as mother and daughter, though the truth had yet to be spoken. On one quiet night, Lu Yixa confessed that the sick woman lying in the house was not her real mother. Hearing this, Su Fei's heart ached, yet swelled with relief. Day by day, as her daughter softened and grew, Charlie too noticed the transformation. Gratitude welled within him. Though he didn't understand the depth of Su Fei's love, he felt its power. At last, after 7 long years of suppression, the fire they had both buried ignited once more. In the glow of firelight, Charlie looked into Su Fei's clear, steadfast eyes, and all restraint crumbled. They embraced at last, their yearning and love finally unleashed. But fate was merciless still. Charlie's father, ruined by years of reckless debts, returned with creditors and demanded a grand party at the manor. Nothing more than a cover to force Charlie to pay his enormous losses. With no escape, Charlie was left with no choice but to sell the family estate. One bitter night, Charlie sat by his wife's bedside, confessing his pain. Bound by morality and duty for too long, he was on the verge of collapse. In a moment of heartbreaking resolve, he opened the window to the winter wind and removed the quilt from the wife who had lain paralyzed for 10 years. With tears in his eyes, he released her from the prison of her body, ending the suffering she herself had once caused. At her funeral, Su Fei and Charlie exchanged a fleeting glance. Leah, the kind sister of the deceased, saw everything. The years of sacrifice Charlie had endured, and the truth of his love for Su Fei. Instead of blame, she gave them her quiet blessing. But guilt weighed heavily on Su Fei. She believed it was her weakness, her broken promise, that had unleashed this chain of tragedy. Her heart trembled with the destructive power of desire, how it could ruin everything, yet rebuild everything anew. Meanwhile, in Su Fei's room, Lu Yixia discovered the secret watercolor book. Each page revealed a birthday painting, a silent gift year after year. At last, the truth was undeniable. With tears in her eyes, she confronted Su Fei. Mother and daughter wept, grieving for the 7 lost years they could never reclaim. In the final act, Charlie, crushed beneath the weight of debt, found the strength to stand tall. He repaid everything owed, severing the chains that had bound him for so long. At last, he took Su Fei and their daughter away from the manor, away from the shadows of sorrow and sacrifice, to seek the happiness they had always been denied. They began as strangers bound by a cruel trade, torn apart by fate's cruelty. But in the end, it was love, unyielding and eternal, that broke through every shackle and led them back to one another.